Hello and welcome. I'm just going to give it another 30 seconds or so to let some people join. Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to today's webinar where I'm going to talk to you about how to create targets. My name is Casper, and for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm a part of the support team and have been with Workbooks for just over a year now. And I'm joined by my colleague Ashley, who'll be monitoring the questions and will be on hand for any technical issues in the background. He may respond to you while I'm talking. As some of you may already be aware, we're currently running a series of webinars. Thank you to those of you who have attended the previous sessions. I hope you were able to gain some useful tips or skills which have helped you so far. For those of you who may be joining for the first time, we're running a series of webinars every other Wednesday at 4 p.m. BST. If you've missed any of the previous sessions, these can be found on our website, and on your screen now, you should be able to see the program of topics we've covered so far. We're sort of phasing out of the webinars being focused on reporting, but alternative to these webinars, we do offer a monthly 2-day on-site reporting course where we cover certain topics in more depth to help build on your reporting skills and knowledge. If you'd like to hear more about that, please reach out to your account manager and they can go through the details of booking the course. So today's topic is creating charts, which means we'll be focused on how you can highlight if values are meeting, exceeding, or falling short of a goal. The agenda for this webinar consists of getting target values from another column, defining target values per group, displaying targets on charts, and finally, I'll cover any questions that have come in. I would like to note that this session is being recorded and will be sent to everyone after the webinar. So you can display actuals, targets, percentage achieved, and the difference directly on your report. This helps teams measure performance and stay focused on goals. There are 3 ways to measure targets: defining target values per group, getting the target values from another column, and target sets, which I'm not covering within this webinar, but they do allow general or specific targets based on time to be set. So let's say you created a report showing the open pipeline opportunities grouped by sales rep. Now, your sales manager comes to you and says, this is great, but I want to see how each person is doing against their annual sales target. They provided target values for each rep, and they've also asked that the report be color-coded to make it easier to interpret at a glance. Specifically, if someone is over 90% of their target, their figures should appear in green. If they're under 40%, they should be in red, and anything in between should show in amber. So let's go ahead and build that in Workbooks now. Cool. As you will be familiar with by now, we will go to the Start menu, New, Reports, and I'll do a pre-populated report on opportunities. I'll call this report Pipeline Targets. I'll just save that. So as you can see, it's brought in a default set of columns. So if you remember, some records have 2 states based on the stage, opportunities being one of them. So since I only want to see open opportunities, I'll set a criterion for state is open. Cool. So now I'll add a summary view at the top of the page. And I'll add a grouping column for my assigned to name, and I'll just rename that sales rep, so that's a little clearer. From there, I'll add a subtotal column on amount home currency, which is something that we always recommend, because while your current set of opportunities might all be in the same currency in the future, they might not be. So I'll just click Load Preview to see how the report looks now, and I'll zoom in a little bit for you there. So now we can see each sales rep in a team and their amount of, their total amount for their open opportunities. So, actually, I forgot to point out, when creating the subtotal at the top, you can see that I had the option to add targets. The alternative way, which I'm doing, is going into the column after it's been created, going to the Targets tab, and as you can see, currently it says no targets. In this report, I would like to define it per group, so I'll select that. And as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, you can also add the difference, which just say someone has achieved 10,000 of their 100,000 goal, it will show minus 90,000 because that's the difference. So I'll add my values by clicking Add Target, and as defined by my manager, Alison needs to have a target of 500,000. And Workbooks by default will add the comma separators, and you also don't need to worry about a currency symbol. If the target is a financial value, it will automatically add this as well. So let's add one for Andy Bean, which should be 700,000. And then finally, Anthony, which needs to be 400,000. Perfect. So I'll just save and close that for now. And let's see what's changed. Cool. So now we can see that for the 3 members of the team that I specified targets for, it's split out the amount home currency column and added target and percentage achieved next to it. For those which I didn't specify, this value is just blank and achieved is 0%. So this looks great, but our manager did ask for conditional styling. Now, if you recall Milo's webinar on conditional formatting, this can be done within the column itself. So I'll reopen amount home currency and go to the Style tab at the top there. And since we're using targets, I can select conditional styling on targets. Now, if you remember what was asked of us, we need the low threshold to be 40% and the high threshold to be 90. And this will automatically update the values at the bottom here. And it looks like by default it's already set red, amber, green, so I don't need to change any of these colors, but feel free to play around. So I'll save and close this and refresh the preview. Great. All of the formatting has come through. And if you haven't already seen it, I would really recommend checking out Milo's webinar on conditional formatting for more information on styling within reports. And if you're unsure where to find this, don't worry, I'll be covering that at the end of this webinar. Cool. So I'll just run my report now. And now, as a little bonus, if you recall the last webinar I delivered, we showed targets on charts. And I'll just go over this again quickly with this data. So on the left-hand side, there's chart this view. I'll select a bar chart and I'll call this sales rep performance. And staying on the left-hand side, I'll select the amount home currency column because that's the information I want displayed in the chart. And moving over to the right, I'll keep the label column to be sales rep, since I want it split by the sales rep. On the left-hand side, underneath the column that I've chosen, there's the targets section, which will only appear if you do have targets included on your report. And I will choose to show my targets with conditional styling. Now, if I create the chart, let's see what it gives me. Great. There we go, a quick, easy visualization of team performance against their defined targets, but it does also include other members of the team which have not defined targets for, but not with a color coding. I'll close that for now. And let me reopen the slide. So we've just covered the first way that I'm going to cover of setting targets. Now I'm going to go into how to get target values from another column. This is ideal if you want to assign custom targets via logic or a fallback value. To do this, we need a calculator column to define these targets. So here's a formula I made earlier, defining targets for specific members of my team, while also setting a default for others in the team. As I said, the sort of fallback value. If it's not Alison, Andy, or Anthony, then the member of the team can still have a target of 750,000. So let's head back into Workbooks and add this to the report that we've made so far. So if I go back and edit this report, and I'm just going to add another summary view, and we might as well copy our existing one. This will add summary 2. And just for the purposes of demonstration, I'm not going to rename it, but I do recommend you give each report summary view an accurate name and description. Cool. So I'm just going to add a new column, a calculator column, and I'll paste in my formula from my slides, and I'll call this target. If I just run that now, you'll see the existing report as well as a new column, targets, where it's exactly the same value for the first 3 members, but everyone else now has a target of 750,000. So if I reopen my amount home currency and go to targets, I can now set the target type to be get target values from another column. And I'll set that to be target. So I'll save and close that and refresh the preview. Cool. So now you can see it's added that target to every other member of the team and given me the percentage that they've achieved that target. You probably don't want an extra target column as well as the one under amount home currency. So you can always click the arrow, go to columns, and untick the column you don't want to show in your report anymore. Then make sure to save that so that the changes don't revert. So I'll just save and run that. And as you, summary 2, got myself off guard there. So as you can see now, everyone has a target, percentages are calculated for them, and the conditional formatting still applies because that was on the amount home currency column. So To recap, I showed the two main ways to set up targets within Workbooks reports, defining target values per group and getting target values from another column, calculated or defined. Targets can be applied to summary views, and we'll split a column into actual, target, and percentage achieved, and you can also choose to turn on difference. Targets are not limited to financial values. An example of this could be case count, or number of sales leads, maybe number of phone calls made. And once configured, targets will also carry through into charts. But use whichever method works best for your data setup, and don't forget that you can combine targets with formatting to make insights stand out more clearly. So let's see if we have any questions. So Thomas Love has asked, is it possible to set a target to tasks, and how? Just trying to think. So you can add a target to any numeric value on any record, really. It doesn't necessarily have to be an opportunity or are you able to sort of expand on that, maybe? What sort of value would you be wanting to measure on your tasks? You would be able to do possibly a target on the number of tasks complete. Yes, yeah. Because you could always create a column in a report which creates a count of completed tasks, and then you can have a target against that if you wanted. So Ella wants to know what happens if I don't set a target for one of the groups. Well, as part of my first demonstration, as I showed, if no target is set when you're using target groups, the target cell will be blank and the achieved value will be 0%. But if you are using a calculated column, that will use whatever value you add to your else statement. Cool. If there are no other questions, our next webinar is setting up email accounts, where you'll be learning how to send communications out of Workbooks, and this will be on the 6th of August at 4 p.m. BST. Until then, if you need help with a report, you can check out our knowledge base. And for support contacts, you can get a hold of the support team either by email, phone, or using our case portal. You can also reach out to your account manager. And finally, we do have some videos on our website on the following topics: end user training, reporting, importing, system administration, and more. You'll be able to find the recording for this webinar along with our past ones at the link on the screen and by selecting webinar recordings. And that's everything for this session. Thank you for attending, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.